So it's 2 o'clock. Let's get started. First, I'd like to thank you for all coming here. It's middle of the afternoon on the last day of the conference after lunch. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear about enterprise-grade BI and Power BI. And I haven't heard a cell phone ring in one of these presentations in years, but just in case. Some other template information we're supposed to show about resources. Thank you. That's for my Twitter followers. I appreciate the photo. My name is Richard Kachuk. I'm a program manager on the Power BI team. I manage the team that was responsible for the analysis services engine. This is the thing that powers Power BI, as well as aspects of Power BI Premium. And I'm just absolutely delighted to be here today. So today we have, it's really a packed presentation full of enterprise BI features. I'm starting talking about a little bit of the overview of Power BI Premium and explain what it is. And Assaf and Mickey will be following me talking about additional features of enterprise information management in Power BI. So let's start with just defining some terms about enterprise BI. Analysis services has been around for at least 20 years. At least 20 years, and it is the tool by which IT professionals would build a model, bring the data from the organization, and deploy a model for analytics applications for their users. That is an IT function. And since its inception, it's been one of the leaders in the analytics space for building analytics models. Self-service BI wasn't a thing back then, and we started about 5 or 6 years ago with launched a self-service BI tool. That is, anybody in your organization can pull data from almost any source, massage it a bit, do the data prep work, and build reports with beautiful visualizations in Power BI and share it with their colleagues. And since that 5 years, we're now, by the consensus of the analysts, the leader in this space. But these aren't two different things. It's a continuum, 2 points on a continuum, because you as an IT professional sometimes pick up those self-service created Power BI reports. They grow, many of them grow in popularity and use until they're picked up by IT to ensure that they conform to your organization standards. And so one of the messages I have here is that Power BI Premium is a space for all types of BI, for the self-service and as well as for enterprise BI. Actually, that's one of the main takeaways of the session, is that this is where we're converging on. And we want Premium to be a all-encompassing, a superset of the features of Azure Analysis Services and Power BI. Think of it as a Russian doll, that there are capabilities of Azure AS or capabilities of Power BI Pro, but Premium is where they all and more will exist. We're almost at the end of that journey. There's some aspects, some capabilities that are in Azure AS that are not yet in Premium. And let me chat about that in the context of various themes of semantic modeling. So for analysis services, the authoring tool is Visual Studio plus SSDT. SQL Server Data Tools. And in Power BI, it's the Power BI Desktop. That's the authoring environment. And by any measure, get it, by any measure, Power BI Desktop is a great tool, but there's still some capabilities. I keep trying this. I keep told, Richard, you're not very funny. And so I'll just stop. But there are some capabilities in SSDT that are not yet supported in Power BI Desktop. Things like translations, KPIs, perspectives, custom level groups. So some things that we're working on, we want to incorporate that and make Power BI Desktop the authoring environment for Power BI Premium, for both the IT professional and for the self-service BI. For governance to understand what's going on, what is going on with Power BI. Well, in SQL Server Analysis Services, we've got Xevents and Profiler. Azure Analysis Services, there are Azure Diagnostic Logs, which is superior to the capabilities in SQL Server Analysis Services. And those things will be coming to Power BI Premium. But there will be more there's more in Power BI that are not and won't be in analysis services. And we're talking a bit about those later today. Endorsements, that you can tag data sets as certified across the organization for their accuracy and comprehensiveness, as well as sensitivity levels, where you can put extra security precautions on data that are preserved even when that data is emitted into other applications such as Office. And we'll be talking a lot more about both those things later in the session. For scalability, scalability is an interesting one. This week, we just announced lifting the size restriction of models in Power BI Premium. It used to be 10 GB. That limit is being lifted, and you now can use as much memory as you have on the capacity that you've purchased. There's one capability that is in Azure AS, not yet in Premium, and that is scale out. Azure AS has the capability to create read-only replicas, so under high concurrency loads, multiple nodes can be spun up. That capability will be coming to Premium in time. One thing that you have in Power BI that you don't have in Azure AS is the ability to have models that whose aggregate size exceed the capacity of the node. Can't do that in Azure AS. In Power BI, what we do is we evict models when they're unused and bring ones that are in, and we play that balancing act of bringing in models, bringing out. Open platform connectivity. Shortly after Analysis Services, was created, the XMLA protocol was adopted both for querying and managing instances of analysis service. And I've got a demo of this later. That capability is already partly in Power BI Premium, and we'll be finishing that journey for XMLA read-write in a few months. Application lifecycle management. With XMLA, every object in analysis services has an XMLA representation. So you can check it in, you can check it out, you can do diffs, you can go back to previous versions. And if there are questions, I'd like to hold off until the end. Let me get through things, and I'll be happy to answer questions at the end of the session. So that capability has been in Azure Analysis Services for, well, forever. That is now there for Power BI Premium. You can get the definitions, and in a few months we'll be able to submit them to author. But there's some other capabilities that were announced this week for lifecycle management. You'll be able to create dev, test, and prod environments and use pipelines to promote the data sets from one to the other. And finally, on manageability, what we're trying to preserve in Power BI is more of a point-and-click, policy-driven approach rather than a sort of a no-code or low-code approach. You'll be able to you can do everything in analysis services with, for example, incremental refresh. If you want to do this in Power BI Premium, you can set up a policy, and we handle all of the partition management behind the scenes. Now, you can code that, a couple hundred lines of code. You can create new partitions as data trickles in, consolidate the old. So you can do everything with code, but this will be much easier in Power BI. Okay, so let me talk a bit more about large models and how you can have these enormous models now in Power BI Premium, going from getting rid of that 10 GB limit to 40. Well, that's the size of the largest node available. Now, one of the things to think about is that this doesn't mean you can create a PBX file of 400 GB and load it. Well, good luck with that 400 GB PBX file. This restriction for loading is still at 10 GB. What the goal here is you set up incremental updates and submit a small PBX file. That first refresh will take a while to load all that data. And then the other ones will be incremental, and as they update the model as the new data trickles in. And behind the scenes, we'll create partitions for the new updates, and we'll consolidate the ones in the past history. So XMLA endpoints. So, as I mentioned earlier, XMLA is the protocol for querying analysis services. Not just Power BI and Excel, but others, such as Tableau. Almost every popular BI client app on the planet uses the XMLA protocol to query analysis services. And then it's also used for management. So what I'm showing there is SQL Server Management Studio, Profiler, and Visual Studio SSDT using to author analysis services models. And it's also the community projects such as the DAX editor are also applications. So what does this matter to you? Well, these capabilities are coming to premium. And this is important for a couple of reasons. On that right-hand side, query tools such as not only Power BI and Excel will be able to, Power BI will be able to use to query Power BI Premium, but other tools are. Now, there's a consensus among analysts that Power BI is the top platform for analytics, but there are other applications that still others groups of your users will want to use. And so Tableau, for example, is supported against Power BI Premium with the XML read. On the left-hand side, what this means to you is that, say, you can author apps in Power BI Premium using the tools you're familiar with. And you can also take models that might have been created in self-service with Power BI Desktop, that they've been in Premium, they now have been handed off to you to manage, and you can use the same tools you're using today that you author new models in Azure Analysis Services, but now you can take and manage those that were authored with Power BI Desktop. Make sense? Okay, so instead, let me show you an example of that. So first off, how do you get that endpoint to query? So let me show you how to do that. So I've got this game revenue data set, and I'm going to settings. Let me just make sure everybody can see that. And pick settings, server settings. That if I copy that connection string, I can now go to Management Studio. See that connection string is the same thing, and now I can connect, watch out. I can connect to that just as if it's a server. And I can query it with a DAX query. And this always takes a moment. So check this out, how many rows. I just counted the rows in this model. And so let me expand that. Let's make it really big because it's a big number. 3 trillion rows. This takes about 70 gigabytes on Power BI Premium. This is a P3 node. The source data is close to 2 terabytes. 2 terabytes. So with Power BI, we just get this amazing compression. Sometimes, most of the time, around 10x. And so we get almost instantaneous response time on this enormous data. And let me show you it in Power BI. I want to get the data. I want to say get it from Power BI data sets. I don't have to know the name of the endpoint here. I see all of the data sets I have access to. And so let me create this. And let's do the same thing I just did with Management Studio, and let's count the trips. So 3 billion rows. That was pretty fast. Let's do some little quick analysis. Let's take a look at revenue by trip. Revenue by zip code. Let's do that. See how fast this is? Just with 2 terabytes of data, just click, 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 click. And I always love looking at maps. Let's take a look at this data. So this data is about 10 years of taxi rides in New York City. And each trip has a pickup spot and a drop-off spot and the revenue associated with it. And so in a matter of a few minutes, but I'm just getting that immediate Power BI experience, but with enormous volumes of data. So let me take a look at where those trips occurred and the revenue for them. Oh, don't summarize. And so in a few moments, I'll have a map of, over the last 10 years, the trips in New York City, of where they came from and where they're going, and the revenue for each. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know what that looks like. There we go. Let me do this. Let me do this. There we go. So we get that, just instantaneous response time. And I can click on the zip codes and focus on, that's taxi rides in downtown Manhattan. Take another look at the other zip code. That's the taxi rides in LaGuardia. And I can zoom in and just get really fast analysis on just enormous amounts of data with large models in Power BI. Okay, so let me go back to the deck. There's one more thing I want to show you before I hand this off to Assaf, and that's BYOK. There are, in some organizations, financial institutions, law firms, there is a requirement that the data be even more protected. The data in Power BI is encrypted. We're using a key that Microsoft provides. Some organizations want to encrypt the data with their own key that they provide. Now, this gives you an assurance that if somebody gets their hands on the data at rest, they won't be able to do anything with it. Furthermore, if you encrypt your data with bringing your own key, and you want to take that key away, you take that key away and you withdraw it, nobody will be able to get access to the data. That data cannot be unencrypted without it. Make sense? Okay, with that, I want to hand it off to Assaf.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm very excited to be here and present to you the enterprise information management. My name is Assaf. I'm a software developer at Power BI. And we will start talking now about enterprise information management. So Power BI is evolving and becoming an important tool during daily task of enterprise company. This creates new challenges that Power BI faces. We see an increase in the number of artifacts that are created and used across the organization. There are more advanced analytic applications that reuse data and increase the cross workspace dependencies. And in addition, enterprise companies today requires more oversights and governance on Power BI data in order to ensure that their data is fully protected during download and upload from Power BI. In order to face what we just saw, the challenges that we just talked about, Power BI introduced the Enterprise Information Management, which is also called EIM. EIM contains three main solutions. The data reuse and discovery, in order to face the growth of Power BI and help us search the data that we can trust. The data lineage and impact analysis view, which help managing the analytics applications. And the data governance and protection in order to provide a security solution to Power BI data. Let's start talking about the first solution, which is the data reuse and discovery. So Power BI wants to enable a high-quality data sets that should be shared across the organization. Dataset consumers want to trust their data their data that they see and use in their dashboards and reports. Especially today, when a data set can be shared across multiple workspaces. As a result, each data set today can have an endorsement badge that states the following. One, the data set is ready to be used and shared across the organization from the creator aspect. And the other type of badge means that the data set is ready to be used and the IT department, and it got a certification from the IT department or admin. So now when we create a new report, we can easier find the right data sets that the organization wants us to use. We can easier find the data that we can trust when we are building our dashboards and reports. We will see an example of the endorsement later. Let's start talking about the second solution, which is the data lineage and impact analysis. So let's talk about the data lineage challenges. We want to be able to answer questions such as which reports will be impacted if I will change a specific data set? Or I'm seeing now out-of-date data on my dashboard. How can I fix it? Those daily questions are common for a lot of users during their daily tasks or before an important meeting when a dashboard should be presented. We want to create a way that answers those questions in a fast, simple, and understood solution. What you are seeing now is Power BI service. We are looking now at Sales HQ workspace, and I'm the admin of this workspace. Now I'm going to switch, now by pressing the lineage view button on the top right corner, inside the option header, I will switch from the regular artifact list view that we are all familiar with, which is a table-based list, to the new lineage view, which shows us the same information and more. What we can see from first look are the workspace artifacts, additional information, and the relationships between them. We can see a full data flow from the data source level, which we didn't add on the list view, for the data flows and data sets, and into the reports and dashboards. We hear from customers about what can be done with the lineage view and how it can help gaining confidence on the workspace data, and how it can help on troubleshooting scenarios. Let's take now a real use case scenario and see how the lineage view can help us. Let's say, for example, that this dashboard, the North and Central America summary, show us out-of-date data, and we need to understand what happened.
You just want to take your lane off that's running on the microphone. Take your lane off.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So I will just repeat my last sentence. We will now see a use case, a real customer use case, where we have out-of-date data on this dashboard, and we will try to use the lineage view in order to help us understand the problem. So first of all, I will click on the Show Lineage button, which is located on the dashboard, in order to give me a better view. Now the lineage view show us the relevant artifacts that related to this dashboard. We can see now that this dashboard is based on 2 reports, which takes data from 2 data sets. One data set is a data set that is part of this workspace and gets its information from an on-prem data source after a gateway. And the other type of data sets looks a little bit different from this one. The Customer 360 dataset has a different icon, and we can see also a link. This is because this is a shared dataset. It doesn't exist in the Sales HQ workspace, but on a different workspace. We can see also that the Customer 360 dataset is also a certified dataset that was approved by the IT department. We will continue the troubleshooting effort by navigating to the workspace that the Customer 360 is located. What we did now is navigating to a different workspace, and we are seeing the Customer 360 dataset. I will click the Show Lineage button in order to highlight the relevant artifacts, and we can see that behind this dataset there are multiple data flows that build this dataset data. From first look, I can see the red triangle on these 2 data flows and see that there was a refresh error on them, which will probably be our root cause. When I click on this data flow, I can get additional metadata, such as the number of entities and which entities exist in this data flow. I can see also the owner and additional information. If I will, for example, in addition to the entities list, I can see also the entity type, the categories entities which I'm now highlight is a reference entity, which is probably explain why we have a connection between those 2 data flows. Let's say that I contact the owner, and now the problem was solved, or it was a known issue. All I need to do now is run the refresh action from the 3-dot button menu on the artifact, and this would trigger a full refresh from this data flow up until my out of the dashboard. So what we have just saw now? We saw a full workspace lineage from the data source down to the dashboard. We saw also a lot of metadata, such as the refresh timestamp, the failure indication, the endorsement labeling, entities and table information, and more. We saw that the graph is also interactive. We can run different artifact actions on each type of artifacts. We also saw that the Lineage view provides us cross-workspace information by displaying the shared datasets and data flows. Our next view the next view that we are working on in the Lineage family is the impact analysis view. If now the Lineage view can show us a shared dataset, which means a dataset that exists on workspace A but is consumed in workspace B, as the dataset owner, I want to understand how many workspaces took dependencies on my workspace, and inside each workspace, how many dashboards and reports. And this view, which is work in progress and will come, will give me this answer. I will be able to understand how many users and workspaces took dependency on the dataset that I'm in charge. So what's in it for you? First of all, in my opinion, I think a graphical view for the workspace, in most cases, is sometimes better and gives a better view. Besides that, we can gain more confidence in our data to know what is connected to what. We can increase troubleshooting efficiency when we have data problems, and it can avoid data duplication when we add new when we add new content. Besides the view that we just saw in the Power BI service, all the information of the Lineage view, which is mainly the artifact information and the relationships, are available by the admin REST API for third-party tools. And I'm happy to invite now Mickey.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm very excited to be here. This is our first time. It's also Assaf's first time. I'm a senior software developer engineer in Microsoft. I come from Israel just as well. And I've been told this city is rainy city and there hasn't been a single drop of rain the entire week, wasn't it, right? Okay. And I want to tell you also that I'm a huge Seahawks fan, but that's something else. Okay, so we're going to talk about data governance. So Richard just covered data reuse and discovery. Assaf talked about data lineage, and I'm going to talk you through data governance and protection. Okay, so let's go over our challenges a little bit, okay? Key questions we keep hearing from administrators are, how can we ensure the organizational data is protected? How can we prevent access to unauthorized data? Another question we keep hearing from data owners is, how can my productivity stay high while keeping the data protected? We've heard from customers that in order to address data protection concerns, the ability to export or download data in Power BI is turned off completely. From the IT perspective, how do we know whether IT requirements are fulfilled? What's the oversight of sensitive data in my org? With the evolution of Power BI, we're introducing now end-to-end enterprise-grade data protection capability. There's data protection inside the Power BI service. On top of that, there's user activity monitoring and real-time control. And Power BI also leveraged the already existing integration of Office with Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity labels, and we'll talk about a little bit later, and that allows protecting data beyond the gates of Power BI. Now, with all of that, we also equipping administrators with more oversight capabilities. Protecting customers' data is Microsoft's mission, and so Power BI can leverage the Microsoft strengths of addressing security challenges. But first, let's see how sensitive data is protected in Power BI and beyond the gates of Power BI. So anyone heard of Azure Information Protection Sensitivity Labels or Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity Labels? Okay, I see a few hands in the cloud. Thank you. Okay, so sensitivity labels is not a new concept. Office has already integrated sensitivity labels to its files. So if the organization already implementing sensitivity labels while working with Office, these are the very same sensitivity labels being used to classify and label files such as Excel, PowerPoint, Word, or emails in Exchange. However, now, Microsoft adds the sensitivity labels to Power BI data. Data owners can classify data sets, reports, dashboards, and data flows with Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity labels. It's an end-to-end integrated solution. With Power BI data protection, the sensitivity labels continue to be attached to the data while being exported to Excel, PowerPoint, and even PDF files. So although Power BI was exported out of Power BI realm, it carries the sensitivity label with it. The label attached to the file will make sure the security policy is enforced by the Office application when opening the file. If the user doesn't have permission to the file, Excel will deny access to it. You also get default labels and default restriction. They're already available if you have Office 365 subscription in the organization. We'll talk about licenses in a bit. Okay? So now let's see a demo and see how it works in real time. Okay, we're going to close the stuff here. Okay, so right here I have Ken here. Okay, this is the icon of Ken. Okay, and here's a business analyst. And Ken's opened the workspace and can see a list of the Power BI objects. Now, Ken can look at the object and he decides if some data is too sensitive and he would like to classify it as such. You can see that there are also dashboards, data set, and data flows. And data flows all have now sensitivity column on which, in which Ken can see what is the sensitivity label for each object. Now let's assume that Ken would like to change the sensitivity label because customer 360 report is too sensitive and he wants to protect it and set a new sensitivity label for it. So on the settings blade, you see there is a new section here saying sensitivity labels. And when I click it, I get a list of the available labels Ken can choose from. Okay? These are the very same sensitivity labels that already define in the organization, the Security and Compliance Center. I'm going to talk about it too in a minute. So Ken chooses the sensitivity labels, saves his work. You can see it changes to highly confidential. You see there is also a tooltip with a description saying what this label is about. Okay. So Ken would also like to work with the report, and he also would like to export it. Okay, so he clicks the 3-point menu, and he exports the data to Excel. Okay. So to save time, there is a Excel report already shown here. And what we can see here, what we can see here, that the integration works end-to-end. And when Ken export the data from the Power BI report to Excel, the label persists. The label persists. Because Microsoft Information Protection label is fully integrated. OK, we get to see it now. It's open. Because Microsoft Information Protection label is fully integrated with Office, Excel recognizes the sensitivity label and applies the permission derived from it. This works the same if the report were exported to PowerPoint and also to PDF. Now we can see the label that Ken has set earlier. We also get to see a small icon here, okay, that says that this file is protected and has permission that are derived from the label that was assigned to the file. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, setting the labels for the entire organization is done in Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. This is the one place to set it all. The sensitivity label defined in Office 365 Security and Compliance Center are the same label used in Office files and Power BI. About licenses. To view and apply sensitivity labels, user must have Azure Information Protection P1 or P2 license. Once the sensitivity label and policies are created in the Security and Compliance Center, the admin can enable the information protection sensitivity labels in the tenant settings. We see here in the screenshot, this is the tenant settings in the admin portal. We have a new switch, information protection, and there the admin can turn on the switches to enable the sensitivity in Power BI. Sensitivity labels are also available on the Power BI mobile app just as well. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is monitoring and protecting user activity real-time on sensitive data using Microsoft Cloud App Security. Microsoft Cloud App Security is a multi-mode cloud access security broker. This is a new generation of security solution that is essential to any modern security strategy. Microsoft Cloud Access Security Broker gives you rich visibility into your shadow IT. It enables you to identify and remediate cloud-native attacks and allows you to control how your data travels. And all of this across all your cloud apps, including Microsoft and third-party applications. With Microsoft Cloud App Security, we call it MCAS, Microsoft provides a good user activity visibility and real-time controls to enforce organization policy. Microsoft Cloud App Security is integrated with the Microsoft Information Protection sensitivity labels I just shown you. So for instance, it can control or even prevent risky user activities by assessing in real time the labels assigned to data in Power BI reports, dashboards, data sets, or data flows. Okay, now let's see how that works. So right here, I have a virtual machine. This is, I'm playing the role of James, who is a business analyst who usually works from his office. Now today, James is working from home and connects from his PC that isn't managed by the IT. His organization allows him to work from home because he works in the protected Power BI realm. Okay. Now James works with Power BI. He opens the workspace. There is a report here. You can see this is the very same Customer 360 report that Ken was just worked on and changed the sensitivity from general to highly confidential. Now, Ken is not only looking at the report, he would like to further work and analyze what's on it and export it and work it on his unmanaged device. But the download is blocked. Why was the download blocked? The organization real-time control kicks in real time and blocked his download. In real time, the activity was assessed, and because the file being exported was classified as highly confidential, Microsoft Cloud App Security blocked his download. What we are seeing here is full integration between Power BI, Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity Labels, and Microsoft Cloud App Security, all join forces together to protect the data in real time. So with Microsoft Cloud App Security real-time visibility and control over Power BI user activities and sensitivity labels, administrators can configure security alerts for Power BI service. Right here we get to see the animation of what I was just showing you. And there are alerts and security which you can configure using Microsoft Cloud App Security. These alerts come in all shapes and sizes, including but not limited to suspicions Power BI report sharing, block download of confidential files to unmanaged devices, impossible data detection, impossible travel detection, uncommon location login attempts, and lots more. So far, we've seen how Power BI helps to protect the data, but we are yet to cover how admins get a clear oversight over the organization's sensitive data and risky user activities. Admin oversight with Microsoft Cloud App Security enhance administrator capabilities with more security tracking and investigation visibility. To aid admin full visibility, we've added a new Protection Metrics tab in the admin portal. There, the administrator have full visibility of sensitive data labeling in the organization. Admins can continue the investigation and get more insight here by navigating to the Microsoft Cloud App Security portal. Okay, now let's look at it a little closer. Okay, so this is the Excel from earlier. And now we're going to look at okay. So this is the admin portal. Okay, and just as I mentioned, there is a new Protection Metrics tab. Okay, and in the new tab, I can see which sensitivity labels we have, which workspaces have which labels or sensitive data. I can also see export operation by file type. I can see that Excel, PowerPoint, and PDF download were attempted. I get to see what was blocked and what was allowed. I also get to see the Cloud App Security alerts. Okay, and as I mentioned, there is also a button here that allows me to go to the Cloud App Security portal and continue the investigation and get more oversight from that center. Okay, so in the Microsoft Cloud App Security Center, the admin can see the open alert. We can see that James has just attempted a download that was blocked. Okay, we get to see the blocked download by James Westbrook. Well, it says 5 hours ago. Trust me, it was just done. It was just blocked. Okay, you get to see the alert types. There are also a list of risky users performing some risky operation. We get to see that Adele and James are on top of the list. You also get to see the activity map and see where are those risky operations were attempted from in the global map. Okay, so wrapping it up, okay, what's in it for you? Power BI data owners can apply consistent policies and labels on sensitive data. They can do that across Office 365 and Power BI, and by that, enable data owners to protect the data according to organization policies. Microsoft helps you prevent unauthorized access to data that was exported from Power BI and reduce the risk of unintentional data leaks. Users can effectively consume data while abiding security and compliance policies. Administrators can get better oversight over where sensitive data is stored, who has access to it, and meet privacy and regulatory requirements. They can also use Microsoft world-leading cybersecurity products to monitor and protect data in Power BI as well as in Office 365. So here's some documentation reference to sensitivity labels in Power BI and other useful information. And with that, I'm taking questions if you have. Okay.
So I saw you apply the labels to data sets, reports, dashboards.
Yes.
If we have a process where somebody labels a data set with reports, their use of data sets automatically get the same.
Okay. Okay, I'll repeat the question. So your question basically is, do reports and dashboard inherit the sensitivity label from the data set when data set is applied with a sensitivity label? So right now, no, okay? But we announced this sensitivity label and Microsoft and the integration with Microsoft Information Protection this week in Ignite. This is the public preview, but for the GA, which come in about 6 months, don't, you know, with a nice disclaimer here, the inheritance question is going to be addressed, and we will come up with a good story what happens when you apply sensitivity to data sets and how it impacted the report and the dashboard that are belong to it. Okay? You can also ask questions about the previous sessions we had with Assaf and Richard, you know, if you want to take them. Yes, please.
The Lineage view, is it only premium feature or also pro?
Okay, so repeat the question, please.
No, the Lineage view is also for Pro. You can, we are now in the middle of public preview. You can open your Power BI portal and see the switcher button, which I demonstrated, and you can see the Lineage on your workspaces.
Yeah, so we have the question here.
Okay, but the cross-workspace lineage analysis,
Yes.
I come from the one workspace and deep dive into the second workspace. What permissions do I have to have in the second workspace if I'm just the admin of the first one?
Good question. You will
Can you
need.
repeat the question?
So the question was, when I navigate to a different workspaces after clicking on a shared data set, what permission do I need to have on the other workspaces in order to succeed with it, right? Yes. So yeah, you will need a write permissions on the workspace of the shared data set. Yeah. The Lineage view is not displayed on a read-only workspace. On a user with read-only permissions. If I'm not mistaken, you can click on the.
What's the question?
Oh, sorry. The question was, what happened if I'm moving between workspaces, but I need the additional information in order to understand what happened. So if I'm not mistaken, when you click on the shared data set, you can see also the additional information that I saw, and you can contact the owner and ask for him for permission or ask him a question. Do you know something that happened?
Yes, please.
Might be a bit stupid, but will the sensitivity and protection on the Office Excel files, if you're using G Suite instead, will that carry over?
So let me, so you're asking about the workbooks because we had reports, dashboard, data flows, and yeah, on workbooks, on the works when you bring it from, when you upload from workbooks, or?
No, if you are opening and analyzing Excel.
Okay.
You have G Suite installed instead of Excel.
Okay, and?
Do you know if the protection tagging will come over? Or is it? Yeah, when I export, yeah.
So I'm not sure I understand the question, so can you repeat?
Yeah,
The different set of products, not Office, what happens?
Can you just use the, you want to?
Well, the question is, what happens, if I understand, what happens with the labels if they don't go to Office, but an external product, a G Suite or Google's products, what happens to the labels?
Yeah, we don't support that. The integration is only with Microsoft Information Protection sensitivity labels. Okay, so this is a public support with an SDK. You can search it online. Okay, and this is what we integrate with Office and Power BI. Third-party products are not part of that support. Okay.
Data lineage question. So if I change a single column change the name of a column in my data set, at the moment you've got the data lineage, but that's for the whole data set. Can you refine it so it's referring just to that column?
So if I understand right, you're talking about a column-based lineage. If I want to see after what exists after the data sets.
Yeah. So instead of I've got a data set.
Yeah.
What I've seen so far tells you who's using the data set down reports or dashboards, whatever. If I've got want an individual column, who's using this column in this data set down the.
Yeah. So the question was, will I have the information to know who is using a single column inside the data set? So first of all, I know that we have plans to extend the lineage view to include not just the artifact that we just saw, but also to go deeper and show the columns per each data set. Once we will have it, we can then update the impact analysis view to say who is using it. I mean, today we are in the scope of artifacts. So we are showing this is a shared data set, this is the one, this is how many users. When we go deeper inside the lineage view to the column-based, to column, we can update the impact analysis to what you are saying.
Yeah, I think the sensitivity level and dashboards for exporting to Excel. Can you place it on a user role, or if you block it, does it block everyone in the organization?
So what you're asking about the sensitivity labels?
So when you block people exporting dashboards, does that block the whole organization, or can you apply to certain users so you can have management export?
Okay. Okay, so let me repeat that. So you're asking if using Microsoft Cloud App Security that I've shown, you can have the granularity to decide whether you want to block users or the entire organization. Yeah, so you have a lot of flexibility there. What I've just shown you, just the tip of the iceberg of the policies you can configure for this tenant, for this organization example, and you can set the blocking level to look at the sensitivity label on the file being downloaded. You can block users. You can block the entire organization. You can have policies that look at different schemes and different issues or location from which users are trying to perform their activities. This is a large set of possibilities, and I encourage you to look for that online or just use the references. This is a very well-rounded integration with Microsoft Cloud App Security that we are issuing. Okay? Yes, please.
How did the security settings, the sensitivity settings align with the data source security of Power BI, like organizational, public?
Okay, so I'll repeat that. So how is the sensitivity labels aligned with the Power BI security? So this is a very good question. The sensitivity labels are not enforced in Power BI. They are not part of the Power BI security model. So technically, what would I assume you would say that if I have something that is labeled as highly sensitive, okay, does that mean that someone needs a high level of permission to see that content in Power BI? This is what you're referring to? Yeah. So this is not being enforced today. Okay. We have plans to do that maybe later on. Okay, when we go to GA, I can't promise anything right now, but the point is spot on. So the security level derived from the sensitivity labels are not applied in the service. They're applied when you go out of the realm of Power BI, when you talk about integration with Office, when you open the file that carries the label from the data to Excel, for instance, then it is enforced by Office application. So technically, you could be the CEO, you would categorize some report as highly sensitive, and someone in your org who is a user who doesn't have permission to a whole lot of content would be able to see that and work with that And so this is a little bit awkward to the model, but we have some plans to make it more aligned. But once again, I can't commit to anything right now. Okay, so I appreciate if you take a minute to evaluate our session. And thank you for being here. This has been a long week, and this is a long day, and this is one of our last sessions. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.